Before you can revamp your life, you should initially overcome the best impediment holding you up yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you today to share a message that has the ability to change lives, reshape fates, and light the blazes of significance inside all of us. The excursion we're going to set out upon isn't for weak-willed, nor is it for those substance with unremarkableness. This is a source of inspiration, an energizing weep for the people who hope against hope enormous, who will not make do with anything short of their fullest potential. Today, we dive into the significant idea of overcoming yourself to modify a way of thinking that has the ability to change our singular lives as well as the actual texture of our general public. To overcome oneself is to take part in the most difficult fight one will at any point confront. It's a conflict pursued not on far-off shores or unfamiliar terrains, but rather inside the bounds of our own personalities, hearts, and spirits. It's a fight against our most profound feelings of trepidation, our most imbued propensities, and the agreeable unremarkableness that so frequently hushes us into a misguided feeling of satisfaction. In any case, no doubt about it, my companions, this fight isn't simply worth battling fundamental for anybody who really wishes to transform this world. Recall when you were confronted with an apparently unfavorable test. Maybe it was an individual difficulty, an expert snag, or a snapshot of devastating self-question. In those dull hours, did you withdraw into the security of commonality? Or did you bring the fortitude to deal with your evil presences directly? Actually, it's at these times of difficulty that we have the best and open door for development, for change, for resurrection. Overcoming yourself starts with merciless trustworthiness. It expects us to take a long, hard search in the mirror and face the awkward bits of insight about what our identity is and who we've permitted ourselves to turn into. It implies recognizing our shortcomings without disgrace, perceiving our assets without pomposity, and tolerating that the excursion of personal growth is a deep-rooted pursuit. This degree of mindfulness isn't not difficult to accomplish. However, it is the establishment whereupon all extraordinary accomplishments are assembled. Consider briefly the layers of self-double-dealing we frequently enclose ourselves by. We let ourselves know soothing misleads, keep away from the aggravation of development. I'm not adequate. We murmur in snapshots of uncertainty, blaming our apparent deficiency so as to try not to face challenges. Or on the other hand, maybe we grip to the conviction that our conditions are at fault for our absence of progress, exculpating ourselves of the obligation to make change. These deliberate restrictions are the main adversaries we should overcome on our excursion of self-revelation and remaking. To genuinely vanquish ourselves, we should foster the boldness to deal with these awkward bits of insight directly. This implies being willing to pose ourselves the hard inquiries. What are the propensities that are keeping me down? What are the convictions I grip to that never again serve me? What are the apprehensions that hold me back from going after my fantasies? Exclusively by focusing a light on these dim corners of our mind, could we at any point start the course of change? Mindfulness alone isn't sufficient. Information without activity resembles a seed without soil, brimming with potential, yet incapable to develop. Whenever we've stood up to our actual selves, the genuine work starts. We should shed the layers of carelessness, reasons, and self-restricting convictions that have kept us down for a really long time. This course of stripping away the old to clear a path for the new can excruciating, even unnerve on occasion. It expects us to get out of our usual ranges of familiarity, to embrace distress as a sign of development, as opposed to an advance notice to withdraw. Envision briefly the cover of a butterfly. Inside this defensive shell, a significant change happens. The caterpillar, when restricted to slithering on the ground, goes through a total transformation. Its whole existence is separated and reconstructed, arising as an animal fit for taking off through the skies. This interaction isn't happy for the caterpillar. It requires a total acquiescence to the powers of progress. However, without this time of serious change, the butterfly could never exist. Similarly, we should separate ourselves to modify ourselves into something more noteworthy. This could mean relinquishing connections that never again support our development, leaving profession ways that never again line up with our qualities, or standing up to addictions and horrendous ways of behaving that have held us hostage for a really long time. The cycle is generally difficult, however, it is consistently worth the effort. In any case, here's the lovely truth: inside every one of us lies a wellspring of undiscovered capacity, a repository of solidarity and versatility that is far more prominent than any obstruction we might confront. By overcoming ourselves, our feelings of trepidation, our questions, our pessimistic propensities, we open this potential and set up for an exceptional change. Consider the similitude of a phoenix coming back to life. For this legendary bird to be renewed, it should initially be consumed by blazes. Also, we should relinquish the old variant of ourselves to consume with extreme heat the impediments and purposeful limitations that have kept us fastened to unremarkableness. Really, at that time, could we at any point arise more grounded, savvier, and more fit than any other time in recent memory? This course of self-triumph and revamping is certainly not a one-time occasion, yet a nonstop pattern of development and reestablishment. It requires steady responsibility, constant diligence, and the mental fortitude to deal with disappointment directly. For it is through our disappointments that we become familiar with our most significant illustrations, fashion our most grounded character qualities, and foster the flexibility important to accomplish significance. Consider the best achievers ever, the creators, the pioneers, the progressives who steered human occasions. Do you suppose their ways were smooth and liberated from obstructions? A long way from it. Every one of these people confronted incalculable mishaps, snapshots of uncertainty, and apparently unfavorable difficulties. What put them aside was not a shortfall of trouble, but rather their reaction to it. They saw every disappointment not as a last decision on their capacities, but rather as a venturing stone towards progress. Thomas Edison, in his journey to develop a light, broadly said, "I have not fizzled. I've recently found 10,000 different ways that won't work." This outlook, one that embraces disappointment as a fundamental piece of the excursion towards progress, is critical during the time spent overcoming oneself and remaking. It permits us to face challenges, to push past our usual ranges of familiarity, and to persevere despite affliction. As we leave on this excursion of self-victory, we should likewise perceive that genuine strength lies not in confinement, but rather in association. Encircle yourself with the people who challenge you to be better, who support your fantasies without taking care of your self-image, who consider you responsible to your best expectations. Search out tutors who have strolled the way before you, who can direct you through the traps and praise your triumphs. The force of local area in this excursion couldn't possibly be more significant. While crafted by self-victory is profoundly private, having an emotionally supportive network can give important consolation, point of view, and responsibility. Consider it gathering your very own top managerial staff, people who put stock in your true capacity, who won't hesitate to give you legit criticism, and who motivate you to go after significance. Keep in mind, the objective isn't flawlessness, yet progress. Every day gives us another chance to move forward, to push our limits somewhat further, to turn into a somewhat preferred variant of ourselves over we were yesterday. Embrace these little triumphs, for they are the structure blocks of amazing change. Chasing after vanquishing ourselves, we should likewise figure out how to dominate our brains. Our considerations shape our existence, and by assuming command over our inward discourse, we gain the ability to reshape our reality, supplant self-uncertainty with self-conviction, dread with boldness, and smugness with a voracious strive after development. Develop an outlook of plausibility where difficulties are seen not as detours, but rather as any open doors for advancement and self-improvement. This authority of brain isn't about sure reasoning alone. It's tied in with fostering a restrained way to deal with our thinking designs, perceiving negative self-talk when it emerges, and deliberately picking additional engaging stories. It's tied in with preparing our brains to zero in on arrangements as opposed to issues, on amazing open doors instead of hindrances. Think about the effect of your viewpoints on your day-to-day existence. How frequently have you convinced yourself not to face a challenge, seeking after an open door, or venturing into your maximum capacity? Our psyches are amazing assets, fit for pushing us towards our fantasies or keeping us down in dread. By vanquishing the negative examples in our reasoning, we free ourselves to investigate the full scope of our abilities. Discipline is the extension among objectives and achievement. It is through steady, engaged exertion that we change our fantasies into the real world. Foster schedules and propensities that line up with your most elevated desires. Awaken every day with a feeling of direction. Prepared to confront anything difficulties might come your direction. Keep in mind, it's really not necessary to focus on being great. It's tied in with being focused on the course of development and improvement. This discipline reaches out to all parts of our lives. It implies pursuing decisions that line up with our drawn-out objectives. In any event, when simpler choices introduce themselves, it implies pushing through inconvenience, weariness, and self-uncertainty to respect the responsibilities we've made to ourselves. It implies appearing a large number of days, in any event, when inspiration winds down, since we comprehend that consistency is the way to enduring change. As you overcome yourself and start the most common way of revamping, you'll find that your impact reaches out a long ways past your own life. Your change will rouse others to leave on their own excursions of self-disclosure and development. You become an encouraging sign, a living demonstration of the force of human potential. Ponder the gradually expanding influence of your self-awareness. As you become more certain, stronger, more lined up with your actual reason, you normally rouse everyone around you. Your partners might be propelled to seek after their own proficient turn of events. Your companions could track down the boldness to pursue their fantasies. Your relatives could be enlivened to defeat their own restricting convictions. In overcoming yourself, you become an impetus for positive change locally and then some. In this time of moment satisfaction and shallow achievement, the way of self-success might appear to be overwhelming, even dated. Be that as it may, I guarantee you, it is the surest course to enduring satisfaction and genuine progress. Material riches and transient honors could not hope to compare to the profound feeling of fulfillment that comes from realizing you've beaten your own limits and turned into your best self. Think about the incredible pioneers and trailblazers since forever ago, people who redirected human occasions through their vision, assurance, and immovable obligation to self-awareness. These monsters of human accomplishment didn't coincidentally find significance unintentionally. They manufactured it through the flames of self-victory, determinedly propelling themselves past their apparent cutoff points and declining to acknowledge anything short of their very best. Take, for instance, Nelson Mandela. Detained for a very long time, he might have effortlessly surrendered to harshness and disdain. All things considered, he involved his time in restriction to overcome his own resentment and dread, arising as a reference point of compromise and expectation for a whole country. His excursion of self-success changed his own life as well as modified the direction of history. Or on the other hand, consider the excursion of Oprah Winfrey, who rose from a youth set apart by neediness and maltreatment to become quite possibly of the most persuasive medium characters on the planet. Her way to progress was cleared with innumerable occasions of self-reflection, self-improvement, and a persevering obligation to turning into her best self. These people, and incalculable others like them, act as strong tokens of what's conceivable when we focus on the excursion of self-success and revamping. They show us that our conditions don't characterize us, that our past doesn't direct our future, and that inside every one of us lies the ability to change our lives and have an enduring effect on the world. As you set out on this excursion of self-victory and reconstructing, be ready for opposition from the rest of the world, yet from inside yourself. Your old propensities, your usual range of familiarity, and your apprehension about the obscure will all plot to keep you where you are. Be that as it may, recall, development and solace can't exist together. Embrace the uneasiness as a sign that you're moving in the correct bearing, that you're pushing past the limits of what you once imagined. This interior opposition frequently appears as the voice of self-question, the murmur of dread that lets you know you're not skilled, not commendable, not prepared for the difficulties ahead. See the truth about this voice, a protection system intended to guard you, however, one that frequently keeps you away from arriving at your maximum capacity. Recognize these questions, express gratitude toward them for their anxiety, and afterward delicately, however solidly, push past them. Representation is an integral asset in this course of self-change. Take time every day to imagine the individual you try to turn into. See yourself vanquishing your feelings of dread, accomplishing your objectives, and carrying on with an existence of direction and satisfaction. This psychological practice primes your psyche mind for progress and adjusts your activities to your goals. The act of perception goes past simple fantasizing. It's a deliberate practice in programming your psyche for progress. Competitors utilize this procedure to work on their presentation, seeing themselves executing ideal plays to their eye before they step onto the field. Business pioneers imagine fruitful talks and introductions. By reliably imagining your ideal self and your ideal results, you make an outline for your psyche brain to follow. Be that as it may, vision without activity is simply a fantasy. You should invest the effort to make the penances important to transform your vision into the real world. This could mean getting up prior, working harder, or surrendering propensities that never again fill your more serious need. Keep in mind, each decision you make is either drawing you nearer to or further from your objectives. Pick admirably and reliably. During the time spent overcoming yourself, you'll unavoidably confront difficulties and snapshots of uncertainty. These are not indications of disappointment, but rather open doors for development and learning. Embrace these difficulties as a component of the excursion. Investigate your mishaps with genuineness and lowliness. Remove the examples they proposition and utilize that information to fuel your proceeding with progress. When confronted with mishaps, keeping up with perspective is critical. Recollect that each extraordinary accomplishment in history was gone before by various disappointments and difficulties. The Wright siblings crashed incalculable models prior to accomplishing controlled flight. Steve Occupations was broadly expelled from Macintosh prior to getting back to lead the organization to exceptional achievement. These misfortunes were not endpoints, but rather critical pieces of the excursion towards extreme achievement. One of the most remarkable parts of self-triumph is the advancement of the ability to appreciate anyone on a profound level. As you figure out how to dominate your own feelings, you'll acquire a more profound comprehension of others, upgrading your capacity to lead, motivate, and interface with everyone around you. This profound authority permits you to try to avoid panicking despite misfortune, to settle on choices in light of reason as opposed to drive, and to fabricate more grounded, more significant connections. The capacity to appreciate people on a profound level starts with mindfulness, the capacity to perceive and comprehend your own feelings as they emerge. From that point, it reaches out to self-guideline, the ability to deal with those feelings actually, as opposed to being constrained by them. As you foster these abilities, you'll wind up better prepared to explore complex social circumstances, to relate to other people, and to rouse and persuade everyone around you. Actual well-being assumes a vital part during the time spent self-triumph and remaking. Your body is the vehicle through which you experience life and seek after your objectives. Approach it with deference and care. Foster propensities that feed your body, psyche, and soul. Ordinary activity, legitimate sustenance, and satisfactory rest are not extravagances, but rather fundamental parts of a day-to-day existence lived to its fullest potential. Think about the interconnectedness of physical and mental prosperity. At the point when you deal with your body through ordinary activity, you work on your actual well-being as well as lift your state of mind, increment your energy levels, and upgrade your mental capability. At the point when you fuel your body with nutritious food, you give your mind the assets it requires to work at its ideal. At the point when you focus on rest, you offer your body and psyche the chance to rest, recuperate, and get ready for the difficulties ahead. As you progress on this excursion, you'll find that your meaning of accomplishment starts to move. Never again will you measure your value by outer approvals or material belongings. All things considered, you'll find satisfaction in the nonstop course of development, in the information that you're turning into somewhat better every day, in the effect you're ready to have on the existences of others. This change in context is groundbreaking. It liberates you from the perpetual quest for outer approval and permits you to track down delight and fulfillment in the actual excursion. You'll start to quantify achievement not by what you have, but rather by who you're becoming. Not by the praise of others, but rather by the information that you're living in arrangement with your qualities and reason. Keep in mind, the objective isn't to become another person, however, to turn into the fullest, most true adaptation of yourself. This requires a profound comprehension of your qualities, your interests, and your special gifts. As you strip away the layers of cultural assumptions and willful restrictions, you'll reveal the genuine quintessence of what your identity and you're equipped for accomplishing. This excursion towards credibility isn't simple 100% of the time. It expects mental fortitude to remain in your reality, particularly when it conflicts with cultural standards or assumptions. It requests that you pay attention to your internal voice in any event while it's murmuring against the thunder of outer tensions. Yet in embracing your legitimate self, you open a degree of force and reason that can't be accomplished through impersonational similarity. The excursion of self-victory and remaking is definitely not a singular one. While the work should eventually be finished by you, the help of a local area can give important consolation, responsibility, and point of view. Search out similar people who are likewise dedicated to self-awareness. Share your battles and your victories gained from one another's encounters, and praise each other's triumphs. Think about joining or making a driving force bunch, an assortment of people who meet up consistently to help each other's development and consider each other responsible. Partake in studios and classes that line up with your objectives. Participate in mentorship connections, both as a mentee and as you progress, as a guide to other people. The force of local area can intensify your endeavors to speed up your advancement. As we attract this discourse to a nearby, I maintain that you should pause for a minute to consider all that we've examined. We've discussed vanquishing yourself, confronting your feelings of dread, beating your questions, pushing past your apparent limits. We've investigated the idea of reconstructing in addition to your life, yet your fantasies, your connections, and your effect on the world. Presently, now is the ideal time to unite everything and grasp the reason why this excursion of self-triumph and revamping is so vital. The world we live in is shouting out for individuals who dare to vanquish themselves. In a general public that frequently celebrates unremarkableness and urges us to avoid any unnecessary risk, we want people who will dig profound, to challenge themselves, to turn out to be more than they at any point expected. That is where you come in. By vanquishing yourself, by confronting your feelings of trepidation and conquering your restrictions, you become an encouraging sign in a world that frantically needs it. You show others what's conceivable when somebody won't settle. When somebody decides to have faith in themselves regardless of all chances. Your excursion of self-success has the ability to motivate endless others to set out on their own ways of development and change. However, it doesn't stop there. Whenever you vanquish yourself, you gain the ability to reconstruct in addition to your own life, however your general surroundings. You become a power for positive change, somebody who can handle the difficulties confronting our networks, our countries, and our planet. Since when you figured out how to vanquish the obstructions inside yourself, the hindrances in the rest of the world unexpectedly don't appear to be so unfavorable. Envision a reality where everybody focused on this excursion of self-victory and remaking. Envision the issues we could address, the developments we could make, the positive changes we could make. That world is conceivable, and it begins with you. It begins with your choice on the spot to overcome yourself and focus on reconstructing. Along these lines, as we finish up, I need to leave you with this strong truth. You are prepared to do far beyond you understand. Inside you lies undiscovered possibility, inconceivable strength, and the ability to make genuine, enduring change. In any case, that potential will stay lethargic except if you pursue the decision to vanquish yourself, to stretch past your boundaries, to revamp your reality into something remarkable. The excursion will not be simple. There will be days when you need to surrender, when the voice of uncertainty appears to be stronger than any time in recent memory. In any case, in those minutes, I believe you should recollect this. Each extraordinary accomplishment ever, every positive change, each step in the right direction for humankind began with somebody who was able to vanquish themselves. Somebody who was able to overcome their apprehensions, push past their questions, and revamp their reality into something better. You can be that somebody. You as of now are, as a matter of fact. You simply have to remember it, embrace it, and live it each and every day. In this way, I challenge you one final time. At the point when you leave here today, make a guarantee to yourself. Guarantee that you will never again acknowledge not exactly your best. Guarantee that you will overcome your apprehensions head on. Guarantee that you will propel yourself past your thought process you're prepared to do. Guarantee that you will vanquish yourself many days regardless of how hard it gets. Furthermore, guarantee that you will utilize that inward strength, that unshakable faith in yourself to modify, to make a day-to-day existence a local area, a world that mirrors the absolute best of what your identity is. Keep in mind, the best fights are not battled on outside front lines, but rather inside the offices of our own hearts and brains. It is there that we fashion our personality, our strength, and our heritage. So go forward with boldness, embrace the test of self-victory, and get ready to release the completion of your true capacity upon the world. Your excursion of vanquishing yourself and revamping your reality begins now. Embrace it with your entire being, brain, and soul. For in doing as such, you change your own life as well as move endless others to do likewise. Together, we can make an expanding influence of positive change that will resound for a long time into the future. The power is inside you. Now is the ideal opportunity. Go out there and win. Go out there and modify. Go out there and show the world what you're really prepared to do. Since I accept, and I want to believe that you accept as well, that your most noteworthy accomplishments, your greatest effect, your most exceptional days are still in front of you.